Alright, so for our second round, we of course have the classic double hawk draw. So we have two lands. We're on the draw, which is pretty bad for this hand, but we do have Ghostly Prison to kind of make up for that. So, I mean, I think we have to keep this, but it's obviously not ideal since this hawk is kind of already a mulligan. And we draw a path, which isn't the worst, and see we're up against Jund. So we don't really care about the Tarmogoyf, we just take a hawk for now. And get Kolaghan's commanded. Kills a hawk, makes us discard a hawk. So we set up Martyr to gain us some life and make our Serra Ascendant huge. So here I'm just casting the Serra Ascendant, which might be a little premature. It's likely to just get terminated, although our opponent probably doesn't have Liliana at this point. I could have just cast Squadron Hawk, but if we wait too long, we're going to potentially get below 30, so, I mean, casting Serra Ascendant is fine, but, yeah, it just gets Abrupt Decayed or terminated or what have you. And here, I actually want to path the Tarmogoyf, and getting another white source isn't terrible, so I go ahead and Ghost Quarter my own flagstones. And thin a little more, although that does thin two of our lands. Maybe it wasn't worth it, but it keeps our life total pretty healthy in case we happen to draw another Ascendant. And now this gigantic ooze is feasting upon us, and Liliana. So if we just have one more land, we would basically be fine. Our opponent's completely out of cards. We have Oblivion Rings for both the permanents in play, but well, we could really use that land. Unfortunately, we don't draw it, and that was a huge fade. So far, we just haven't drawn a third land this entire game, and there it is. And our opponent doesn't actually plus Liliana. So, I mean, that's good for us and that's bad for us. That means they have a good card, but it also means our opponent isn't threatening to actually ult Liliana. So they're able to save the ooze with Abrupt Decay. And this is actually one of the huge benefits of Oblivion Ring over Banishing Light, because we actually got to shrink that ooze, and with Banishing Light our opponent could have just Abrupt Decayed it in response. Pretty sure that's how it works for Banishing Light. So some of the rules are messed up, but Oblivion Rings exile. If you destroy the Oblivion Ring in response to the trigger, it's going to exile the ooze forever. If you destroy the Banishing Light with Abrupt Decay while it's targeting Scavenging Ooze, it won't do anything. I believe that's how it works. Just read the card. Exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. Yeah, so I think it would just do nothing. I don't know. Ask a judge. Ask a judge. What do I look like? A judge to you? So our opponent still has the ooze, still has the Liliana. We do have Wrath though, which is pretty huge. So we can O-ring the Liliana, take another hit from the ooze, and then hopefully clean up with this Wrath and then win with the Ranger. So I decide to Ranger, which is somewhat dangerous. For example, Kolaghan's command would be a bit of a blowout, or any sort of removal is actually pretty bad. And decide to get Weathered Wayfarer since our opponent has so many lands. And now we're down to 2. But our patience did pay off in one way, since we're going to get huge value off this Wrath. So as long as we don't die this turn, we're actually looking okay. Well, the Wayfarer died, which is a pretty big deal, but we at least have Martyr. We have Ghost Quarters for this, and we're just going to crack our Martyr now to gain that 3 life, because we don't want to lose to a top deck Bolt if our opponent draws Bolt or Kolaghan's Command and we don't draw a white card. We do draw a white card though, but I mean it's a good white card. So we've been on the back foot this entire game, and now we officially have board presence here. A 1/1 lifelink. Let's go. Alright, another 1/1 lifelink. So, I mean, Maelstrom Pulse is a thought, but there's a much juicier Maelstrom Pulse. This is actually making me want to split Banishing Lights and O-Rings in the main deck. Although, you lose a lot of value not being able to go infinite with 3 O-Rings on an empty board if you play Banishing Light, since you can't target your own permanents. And now things are actually looking up. We have 2 paths for removal. We're beating down pretty well here. We actually drew a Myria that we are pretty close to activating. So we go ahead and actually path our Serra Ascendant to get an extra planes in play. And now our Myria is virtually online. Because we can, once again, Ghost Quarter our own flagstones and get things going. And we're going to float our path to exile, keep it in hand. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. And I mean, we're returning a 1/1 every turn, which is pretty good. Fortunately, our opponent has Tarmogoyf. So the swings on this game have been very real. Now our opponent is actually getting some control with Liliana despite our Myria. Now we have 2 Myrias though, thanks to Weathered Wayfarer. Of course we will use those. And just decide to get a Tectonic Edge. Opponent Thought Seizes. We go ahead and block again. And our opponent gets back Scavenging Ooze, which, I mean, we were in a great spot. we were slowly grinding out our opponent, but now that Ooze is online, we are basically screwed, because that's going to negate our Amirius. I should have used my Misfill Plains in response to this Ooze to bottom my creatures. Unfortunately, I missed that. So we're going to do some bottoming in response to Ooze, but I mean, our opponent has so much green now that we cannot keep up. And Ranger provides a little bit of hope, because now we have Figure of Destiny, which is going to get pretty big, so the swings continue to be real. Unfortunately, we're not at a very healthy life total, and our opponent does draw a bit of removal. So we're at 1. We can make a gigantic figure though. So if we drew a creature here, we could kill Liliana, play a creature, and threaten to block both of these creatures with our 8/8 and actually be in a good spot. Unfortunately, we drew a land and can't kill off the Liliana, which is a pretty huge deal because now this Liliana represents removal. So again, we can draw another creature. Unfortunately, we draw a land, which is pretty much going to spell the end of this game, especially since our opponent gets to see our hand, see the coast is clear, and attack us for lethal. So a very close game. Unfortunately, we did not pull it out, but a very interesting and close, great game. So for sideboarding, we for sure want the relics. Great against K commands, ooze, Tarmogoyf, etc. Want the ley lines probably. Perhaps the banishing lights. Perhaps Core Firewalker, although probably not the greatest of cards. Basically want anything proactive, which means proactive or solid removal, which means definitely not Ghostly Prison. I mean, Liliana, Dark Confidant look terrible facing up. I mean, make Ghostly Prison look terrible. Martyr isn't that great, I don't think, in this matchup. I mean, you don't really care about your life total unless you're just making Sarah Ascendant huge. Definitely want Weathered Wayfarer and Figure of Destiny for value ranger targets, and probably want Wraths as well, although maybe not so much on the play. We're not caring too much about that. So if we want to bring in these 7 for these 7, that seems fine. I think I brought in a Core Firewalker as well. It's good against K Command and Bolt and Terminate, but not really that great against the creatures in general. But if you want to be proactive, maybe just one Wrath of God like that. Seems like a good plan. There's my Firewalker. So I have Figure of Destiny, I have Ranger, I have Core Firewalker, I have Path, 2 lands. Seems like a keep to me. So I lead on Figure. I can level it up into a 2/2 next turn. Of course, it just gets bolted. And our opponent Confidants, so we are pathing that. Gonna try and run them out of cards if possible. Liliana is pretty great there. We're able to path our own Core Firewalker, get into Ranger Danger, which is going to be a great follow-up here, and get a Sarah Ascendant and a Martyr. And here, I could play my Flagstones and play one of these 1-drops, but look, the chance of Liliana plussing is very high, so I kind of just want to discard the Flagstones because it's not really doing anything. Okay, and Purge is a good draw, since we're in theory able to purge the Dark Confidant, kill the Liliana, which is exactly what happens. And Knight of Souls Betrayal comes down, which is going to pretty much ruin our day. So we're basically want a O-ring for that before we can proceed with the game. And Ooze is, of course, going to be a huge problem. And so far our Rangers are looking fairly dinky to this board. And we weren't really expecting Knight of Souls Betrayal. I mean, we could have tried to save Purge, could have tried to just draw better. The Ooze is also just a huge problem. And we attempt to double block in desperation. We don't expect it to work, but it's a way for us to win, and our opponent just has the removal. And 2 mana, thin your deck 3 cards, not bad. And now it's looking pretty grim. And we could commit honorable Squad Doku by playing Squadron Hawks and conceding. Knight of Souls Betrayal, a surprisingly unexpected and great card against us. I certainly wasn't expecting it, although there wasn't that much I could have done, I guess. Maybe sideboarded more aggressively. You can see the 3 Wraths not looking so great against Knight of Souls Betrayal, although would have been great against that.